What is up, fight fans? This is DJC Combat here, and this weekend goes down the second pay-per-view of 2024, UFC 298, headlined by Alexander the Great Volkanovski, putting his featherweight title on the line against the rising, undefeated, confident Ilia, Topuria, and beneath it we got a great main card. Good co-main with Robert the Reaper Whittaker taking on Paulo Costa. Looks like Costa's actually going to make it to the fight. It's fight week. Don't want to jinx it, but I'm recording this video, so you better show up, Costa, because he's failed to show up to fight Whittaker a couple times now. And then Neal versus Garry is rescheduled, and Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo as well. And I'm going to talk about 4 of these fights. And I'm going to start with Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Triple C Cejudo. So we got a bantamweight bout between Merab, the number 1 bantamweight in the world. I mean, Aljo might be technically still number 1, but it's only a matter of time before Aljo gets removed from the rankings, and Merab was number 1 before Aljo lost the belt. So I'm going to call him the number 1 contender versus the number 3 contender, Henry Cejudo, former UFC bantamweight and flyweight champion and Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. That's why they call him Triple C. But a lot is at stake in this matchup for Henry Cejudo. He needs this win more than anything. Because if he loses this fight, he's done. He's 36 years old. That will be 2 losses in a row, to the current wave of competition in the bantamweight division. He lost to Aljamain Sterling by split decision, former UFC bantamweight champion. And Henry Cejudo did not look very impressive in that matchup with Aljamain Sterling. For as close as it was, for as good as an effort that he put up, I just wasn't impressed with what I saw in that fight. I mean, I wasn't overly impressed with Aljamain Sterling either. Neither man looked overly great in that fight, but especially Triple C, for Henry Cejudo standards, in that comeback, he was nothing like the Henry Cejudo of old. A lot slower. Gas tank just isn't the same. Doesn't have the same pop to his punches like he used to. There seems to have been a bit of a decline in takedown defense even. And he's taking on Merab, who's on this long win streak. I'm on his Sherdog right now for my phone. Let me just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So he's 9-2 in the UFC. Merab started 0-2 and then just picked up 9 straight wins. And his last 3 wins his last 2 wins are over former champions. The one before that I was thinking was Marlon, but that was a former title challenger, not champion. But he beat Jose Aldo and he beats Peter Yan. And that performance, man, against Peter Yan was ultra impressive. I know Yan is on an L streak right now, and Yan is going to lose to Song Yadong. I'm just putting it out there right now. So that win isn't going to age well. Yan may be washed for all we know. To dominate Peter Yan the way he did is unheard of. I don't think that Henry Cejudo could do that to Yan, even now, even this version of Peter Yan. And then even, Aljamain Sterling, Merab's best friend, couldn't beat up Peter Yan like that, even though it was a better Peter at the time. He declined from that, rematch. The champion Sean O'Malley went to a split decision with Yan and arguably lost that fight. I thought he lost that fight. Merab 50-44 or 50-43'd Peter Yan, and they say you're only as good as your last fight, right? Well, if you look at both these guys' last fights, unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with Merab Dvalishvili. I want Triple C to win. I want Cejudo to win so badly. But yeah, I just don't have faith, man, after that last performance. I don't see a 36-year-old Henry in a lighter weight class improving from that last fight with Aljo. I do think his prime years are gone, whereas Merab's prime years are ahead of him. And I just think that it's Merab's time. Henry had his time. So I think Merab's going to go out there, pick up a decision win over Henry Cejudo. I just think he's going to push a harder pace against Cejudo. He's going to get more cage control against Cejudo. Cejudo might be able to defend a lot of takedowns, given that he comes from a wrestling background, but it doesn't matter, man. Merab is going to be relentless. He can defend one takedown. He's got to defend 100 more. One of them's going to get through. And I think Merab's just going to have more volume with his striking. And I think Henry Cejudo, his striking, like boxing-wise, Cejudo really isn't that great. So I don't think you'll have the accuracy to like plant one on Merab's chin and knock him out. And Merab is also very tough. Merab has very good striking defense as well. Doesn't get hit clean too often in his fight. So Merab will win this fight handily. And I think Merab takes a unanimous decision. Maybe 29-28 or 30-27. But that's my take on the fight. Now, moving on to Geoff Neal versus Ian Machado Garry. Everyone wants Geoff Neal to win this fight because right now, Ian Garry is like public enemy number one in the MMA community. Honestly, I don't really mind Ian Garry that much. I mean, he's kind of annoying. I don't like the stuff he pulled against Neal Magny where he painted him out to be this like freaking child abuser. I don't like how he made a t-shirt out of Geoff Neal's mugshot, but it doesn't matter what I like or what I don't like or who I like, who I don't like. I can't pick with my emotions, and Ian Garry is uber talented. Look at what he did to Neal Magny, and look what Magny did in his last fight to proper Mike Malott, who was supposed to be this scary up-and-coming prospect in the welterweight division. And mind you, Neal Magny has a win over Geoff Neal. I know maybe it wasn't the best version of Neal. It doesn't matter. If Neal can't do that to Neal Magny, Geoff that is, and now he's fighting an ever-improving Ian Garry who's got like insane momentum, it's hard not to go with Ian. So I'm going to pick Garry to win this fight. Now, Geoff Neal is dangerous. He does have the boxing. He does have the power. He could definitely hurt Ian Garry. It's been done before. Ian's been dropped before against Song Kanan. But I think from that fight, we're going to see an even better Ian Garry. He gets better every fight. I think his defense is much better than what it was last year. And Geoff Neal, he's just too inconsistent, man. He's too inconsistent for me to trust him to beat a guy like Ian Garry. I think Ian is the future of the division. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if Geoff were to fraud check him. We saw a fraud check last night with Joe Pyfer. Geoff Neal is a live dog in this fight. He does have chances with his boxing, with his power, with his experience. But I just trust Ian Garry to win this fight more. I just think he's going to beat Geoff Neal in a tit-for-tat range game. And I just see him picking Geoff Neal apart and Geoff just not being able to get his game going. And it's going to suck because I actually do want Geoff to win, but it's Ian Garry, man, but we'll see. But I'm going to go with Ian Garry to win this fight. And now we got the co-main event. We got Robert the Reaper Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. Paulo is finally showing up. He pulled out of his last fight against Khamzat Chimaev. His last two fights, actually. Chimaev and Robert Whittaker at UFC 284. But now he's showing up. It's been 2 years since the last Paulo Costa fight where he didn't look good against Luke Rockhold. An old, washed Luke coming off a 3-year layoff. Paulo couldn't finish him. Pretty embarrassing. But he's fighting a Robert Whittaker who's coming off a bad loss to Dricus du Plessis where he got handled very easily, brutalized on the ground with elbows, knocked out on the feet in the second round. But honestly, no shame in hindsight because now du Plessis is the champion and du Plessis, I think at this point is better than Paulo Costa. So if Robert Whittaker isn't washed up or isn't deterred, I think Whittaker should handily be able to win this fight. I think he's much faster than Paulo. Paulo's very slow, ploddy. Whittaker's got the footwork. He's very in and out. Paulo Costa has a weakness with jabs. Uriah Hall exposed that, and Whittaker has one of the best jabs, I believe, in the middleweight division. And I just see Paulo Costa kind of standing there, shelling up, and just getting pieced up, picked apart. He might have moments where he tries to like explode forward in the pocket, but Paulo Costa's most dangerous whenever he's able to get his opponents like backed up against the cage where he can unload combos, but I don't think Whittaker's going to give him that ground to be as dangerous as he needs to be. So I think Whittaker will just dominate on the feet and win a decision. Although, one thing I will say about Paulo that does worry me about Whittaker, that actually, for years when this fight was booked twice, kind of worried me, is Paulo is very sneaky when it comes to that high kick, that he caught Yoel Romero with out of nowhere, that he caught Marvin Vettori with while he was backing up. Those guys ate those head kicks because they're so durable. Whittaker does not have the chin of Yoel or a Marvin Vettori. So if Paulo out of nowhere does land that head kick, Whittaker will go down. But Whittaker is actually good at blocking and dodging head kicks. So Whittaker should see that coming as well. And all in all, should shut down Paulo and win a comfortable UD. A Costa upset wouldn't surprise me, but I got to go with the Reaper. I know he lost to Duplessis, but I feel like he's just better than what he showed in that fight. And again, Dricus is the champ. So he showed that he is actually a top-level fighter, and that win over Robert wasn't a fluke. And Robert, he might still have some tread left in the tires. All right, now the main event, Alexander the Great, Volkanovski versus Ilia, El Matador, Topuria. Wow, what an insane fight. I'm super hyped for this fight. The stakes of this matchup are just so crazy because you got Volk coming off a bad loss in his last fight to Islam Makhachev. He's 1-2 in his last 3. 2 attempts to become the lightweight champion. Fell short twice to Islam. And he got knocked out. He's doing a quick turnaround, which is extremely risky against Ilia. And he's got a lot going against him. The 35-year-old curse. Nobody in the featherweight division has won a title fight at the age of 35. So if there is a time for Ilia Topuria to take out Volk, it's now. And Ilia is such a scary fight for the champion Volkanovski. One of the most skilled pocket boxers that Alexander Volkanovski has gone up against. He's got one-shot knockout power. Very, very explosive. And he matches Volkanovski's stature, just being short and stocky. It's not common we see Volkanovski go up against a short, stocky opponent. Ilia is also well-rounded, good 5-round cardio, good discipline, good composure. So Volk's in for a tough matchup, and I could see this fight being a war because we're going to see a Volkanovski who is going to be on a full camp, more prepared than his last fight. The last fight was short notice. This Volk, I think, is going to come in way more switched on, a lot more ready. And Ilia Topuria, man, he's very confident, but he could be overconfident, and it's dangerous to be overconfident against the great Alexander Volkanovski. This is a tough one, man, but usually when I pick against Volk, I don't have a good history picking against him. I was only right because it was a different division with Islam, and the circumstances kind of in the second fight. But in this fight, it's in his natural weight class, featherweight, a division he's been dominating for years, and it's been a tall order to separate that belt from him. Ilia does have potential to do so, but I'm not going to risk it. I'm going to go with the great Alexander Volkanovski to ride out and still the featherweight champion. But I do think it'll be a dogfight. I do see Volk taking a decision. I feel like it will be a very close fight either way. Whether Volk wins, I don't see him steamrolling Ilia because Ilia is different from anyone he's ever fought before. But then I don't see Ilia steamrolling Volkanovski unless he gets like a first-round knockout. But if he doesn't get Volk out of there in the early rounds, I think the longer it goes, Volk is just going to get better. Not because of Ilia's gas tank, but because Volk is so good in the late rounds. He's so good at switching up his game plan and adapting. And Ilia's never fought someone who's able to adapt in tough situations and get better as the fight goes on. I think early on, we're going to see a confident, aggressive Ilia versus a somewhat slow starting Volk coming off a KO loss, being cautious. But if this goes past the second round, man, I tell you, Volkanovski will start to adapt. He'll start picking up the pace. He'll start getting in a rhythm, breaking Ilia's own rhythm, and we're just going to see a shift in momentum, where Volk just shows that champ medal, that champ experience. I think the jab of Volkanovski is going to disrupt the boxing of Ilia Topuria, and those leg kicks too. Ilia is open in his stance to those low kicks. Volk has very good leg kicks. I think that's going to be a problem for Ilia Topuria. And I think Volk's just going to overall have higher output. He's a very hard guy to beat on points, especially in a 5-round fight. Ilia needs to knock him out. And if he can't, winning a decision is going to be difficult. Only Makhachev, thus far, we've seen has been able to beat him by decision. But Ilia is no Makhachev. So I think he gives a good showing. It's going to be a great fight. But I trust Volk to take this one. And speaking of statistics that people are talking about in this fight, one thing no one mentions is every champion who goes up in weight to challenge for a second belt and isn't successful, they never lose 2 in a row moving back down in their natural division to defend their belt. They're always successful when they go back down to make their next title defense. Could that change this weekend? We'll see. I can't wait to find out. I am kind of hoping for a new champion, a change in titles, because Volk's been champ for so long. But as much as I would love to see the beginning of a new era, it's hard to pick against Volkanovski, man. He's proven time and time again to be unstoppable at featherweight. So we'll see. Anything can happen. That's what I love about this sport. Ilia has the tools to get it done. So I won't be surprised if I'm wrong about this one. But let me know your picks in the comment section down below. Who do you guys got winning in the main event? Volkanovski or Topuria? And new. Like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.